Welcome to the Living Proof Recovery Podcast. We're your hosts, Brian and Evan. And tonight, man, I thought we would. So before we aired our first episode, we did kind of some mini clips about where we talked about the 12 steps.
Right.
And we each kind of alternated and kind of broke them down. So what I thought we could do tonight was kind of talk about steps 8 and 9. More so 9 because that's where all the action is, right?
Okay.
But
Yeah.
8 leads into 9. So, with that said, I'm just going to read them real quick, and then we'll kind of talk about. I was thinking about maybe like how do's and don'ts. How to properly make an amends, how to not make amends. Because there's a lot of people out there that get scared of this step.
Right.
It's daunting. You look at it on the wall and you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that shit. So I thought we could talk about ways to do it, ways to not do it, to avoid harming other people and things like that, right? So, all right, step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And then step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So I figured we just take a couple minutes on step 8, just like what that looks like, and then we'll just kind of fall right into the amends making process.
Okay. Sounds good.
So step 8. So we're making a list, right? And it's pretty simple. It's pretty cut and dry. And I think a lot of people get confused sometimes. They think that that's where they're actually making the amends, and but we're literally just making a list of people that we have harmed, and we already have a jump start on that list from the 4-step inventory,
right?
Because we after we do the 4th and 5th step, we kind of realize that even though we had resentments towards people, that we had harmed them in the process as well, and that through our sexual inventory and our relationships, that we've harmed a lot of people. But it's not just those people. There's people that aren't on that inventory that we have harmed.
Yeah.
So all we're really doing is taking the list we already have, moving it over to a new list, and then adding to it. Right? Do we really need to go in any further into that, or?
I mean, no, not really. I guess
like it's a part of becoming willing, so.
Yeah. Become willing to make these amends. We make this list, and at this point, when we make this list, that's where we also, with our sponsor, we identify and organize it, as far as like what we did, what our harm was that we caused, and then at that point, that's when we will organize it with our sponsor, some yes, no's, and maybes about who we can make the direct amends to, or what type of amends we need to make. And, like I said, those yes, no's, and maybes.
Okay, so I do it the same way. We do, depending on the person that I'm working with, it's either yes, no, maybe, or yes, maybe, or fuck no. Right. So depending on the person I'm talking to. But, we kind of categorize them. It's like, okay, these are financial amends. You don't have a job right now. You're living in a halfway house. We can't make this one yet. Yeah. So we're going to maybe push that one back a little bit. You can go make an approach to them, but we can't really make that amend yet. So we're going to focus on some that we can do now. And then once we do some of those, hopefully the maybes become yeses, the no's become maybes. And over time, they're all yeses, right? So made direct amends wherever possible, except to do so would harm or injure others, right? So there's a lot of wrong ways to do this. There's ways to screw this up. There's ways to harm people in the process of making amends, even if that's not our intent. Right. So I think our motives are important when making amends. So what would you say? Like, what is a proper motive? Well, let's just talk about real quick, like what an amend is. Like the word amend, like it means to restore. to repair,
right.
So to make whole.
I'm not going into this saying I'm sorry.
Right.
And apologizing.
Yeah, they know you're sorry. You're the sorriest son of a bitch on the earth.
Right. That's not what that's not how I'm approaching this step. This is me coming to them directly and strictly keeping it on me and what I did wrong.
Yes.
I'm admitting to them how I harmed them, that I'm acknowledging that I know I harmed you, and I'm willing to make this amends as far as what can I do to make this right.
Right.
How are we mending this damaged relationship, and is it even possible?
Right. Yeah, because they might tell you what you can do for me is you can get the fuck out of my face. And at that point, our job is done. Right. Yeah. The best thing I can do is to leave that person the fuck alone.
Yeah.
If that's what they want, then I honor that.
Right. We have to, and that's the thing, we have to be willing to accept whatever the outcome is.
Yes.
Because it's not always going to be what we hope for.
Right. So there was this page, I wrote it down. It's page 79. It talks about, well, I don't find it, but here it is. We ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. Right. So I may get my feelings hurt.
Yeah.
I might have to part with some money that I finally started building up in my bank account. I might have my pride and my ego might get hurt. I might have to experience some fear and some anxiety.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter like what. I made the commitment, right, I'm willing to go to any lengths for sobriety. So I have to do this regardless of how I feel, right? Whether I'm scared or I'm afraid of what's going to happen, they're going to cuss me out, they're going to try and fight me, whatever. I have to make the effort to do it, to make it right if I want to stay sober. Because that's a commitment that I made.
Right. Now, I would say, and I guess it depends on the situation. You had just mentioned I have to be willing, even if they're going to try to fight me. If I know me going to somebody and trying to make an amends is going to lead to a physical altercation, there's other ways we make that amends.
Well, that would injure people.
Right.
So
I wouldn't put myself in that situation. It's all... And maybe there's times where you don't think that's the case, and somebody hits you in the mouth while you're while you're at it. I don't know.
So it gives us a breakdown in the chapter into action of how, like a checklist, basically, of this is what we go through before we go make the amends. Right? It says that after obtaining permission. Right? So that means I don't just show up at somebody's house that I've harmed.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm 62 days sober, and I'm here to make an amends, and then I get punched in the mouth.
Right.
No, I don't do that. I don't, I reach out to them, say, hey, I harmed you, I have some things that I need to say, would it be okay if we meet?
Right.
And if they say no, then I let it go, and then maybe down the road, an opportunity comes up,
right?
And I remain willing. But I don't just show up and like, hey, you're going to hear this amends because I'm working this program. Like, no, like that's selfish. Like, so that makes me think of like the motive of doing the amends is to make right.
Yep.
It's not so that I can feel better.
No.
Right now, I will feel better most of the time from doing it. That's like a result that comes of it. But if I go into it, say I've harmed you, and I go into it, and my motive is so that I can feel better, that's going to injure you. It's going to harm you. It's going to make you feel like, well, you're just doing this for yourself. You're not really sorry.
Right.
You just don't like the way you feel right now.
Yep.
So you're doing this. That's happened to me, and I left that amends feeling even more harmed.
Right.
So we have to be careful. It says we obtain permission, and we never make an amends without like some counsel like we talk to people
Right.
before we go do it. Because what goes on up here sometimes is not always the best thing.
Right. Yeah, I always, before I make an amends, I would have to bounce it off of someone.
Yeah.
Typically, my sponsor is who I would reach out to and let them know, hey, I think I'm going to make this amend or attempt to make this amends or go make this amends. And then, you know, he can guide me and kind of let me know, why are we doing it right now? What's the setting? Because that matters as well.
Yeah.
You know, if it's someone I've harmed and I know we're just both going to be at this event, so since he's going to be there, I want to make it. That it's not always the right time. Right. You know, so it depends on the setting, and you know, your sponsor or your support group can kind of guide you and give you some guidance on that.
But that's kind of where it says in there, like wherever possible, not whenever possible.
Right.
So it's not on my timeline. Now that doesn't mean that I don't make an approach and try to get this done. But if that person's not ready, or I don't want to like ambush this person,
right,
and make them feel a certain type of way, like corner them basically in public, like you're gonna have to hear this amends right now, because we're both here, and now you got to hear my shit, right? You know, and that's not cool. You know, we don't go up to someone and like so. That's one poor way to do this, right? That's one way to guarantee you're going to have to go make another one. Yeah. You know, and they're hard enough. We don't want to go back to the same person and make amends for the amends that we made. Right. You know, so.
And I think that's, you know, all these steps being laid out in this order for a reason. You know, for 8 and 9, being down the line, you know, not only is that for us to be able to work on things we need to work on before we get here, that also gives other people that we owe these amends to, it gives them some time as well. It's not so fresh, things that have happened. So that time helps. Yeah. Right. So, and then it typically, we have some time under our belts now. We have learned how to deal with things up to this point to where we are prepared for whatever the outcome could be. Right. And like I said, you know, especially when it comes to family, you know, having some time for them to process things that have happened without us just running straight out of treatment or whatever the case, you know, however we got sober. For us just running right into it.
4 days into detox. I'm ready to go make some amends.
Yeah, so the timing is huge as well.
So on my way home from work, I was talking to Sean about this, and he was like, yeah, you're going to talk about those people that they're on step 2 and they try to make amends. And I was like, yeah, it's funny because there's like 2 groups of people usually. It's like the people that are on step 2 that are trying to make amends, or the people that don't even try ever. Yeah. You know, it's like, I'm just never doing that. Yeah. Well, you know?
I mean, making amends, it can be uncomfortable, man.
It's,
you know,
very humbling.
Yeah. And there's, even now, I know that I still have some people that I need to make some amends to.
I do too.
You know, even 4 years in, this isn't something that, I think that goes to show that, you know, I've been through the 12 steps on multiple occasions, but I still have some amends I need to make. But time, like even for me, I want to make sure the timing is still right, you know, because I've been the sorriest motherfucker for so long that I want to make sure that when these amends are made, that they also know
it's sincere.
It's sincere. Yeah. And it's not just something that they've heard my entire life. Yeah. You know.
For sure. Like there's some track record, right? There's some groundwork that's been laid. Yeah. And so that kind of makes me think about, so like when, like you said, time, right? So time really makes a big difference because like when I first go through the steps, I write this list down. And then over time, I realize, oh, there's other people I've harmed that I wasn't able to see
Oh yeah.
By the first time that I did the steps, right? Like, so the last time I did them, I was like, oh, there's other ones I never even thought of. Like, I was like, I didn't even think of that because, like, for example, my ex-wife, she was the first amends that I made. You know, I swung big. I was like, I do the hardest one of the hardest ones right out the gate.
Right.
You know, I was like, if I can do that one, the rest of them will be somewhat easy. I don't always recommend that, but that was just the way it kind of worked out. You know, so, but then a couple years later, I realized, oh wow, like I owe her mom and dad amends too. You know, because all the times that I heard her, who's picking up the pieces, her mom and dad. Right. Who's on the phone late at night with her crying, her mom and dad. You know, so I need to do that. You know, but first time through, I didn't think of it that way. I was like, I didn't harm them. You know, I didn't, may have not had directly, right, but indirectly, I cause them harm because it would harm me if someone harmed my daughter. You know, so we got to, it's like throwing a grenade. It's like there's a blast radius that goes out. You know, that it hits all these, the shrapnel hits all these other people that, you know, I've done step work responsees when they come to the men's list with like 3 names on it. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like in 20 years, you've harmed 3 people.
Right.
You know, like, come on. You know, but your resentment list had 206 on it.
Of course.
You know, but so, yeah, so something you said, I think, kind of made me think of this, right? So, like, living amends, right? So I'm not a big fan of that, right? So not that I'm not a fan of it, because there's a context to it that is part of the amends, right? So there's 2 parts to an amends. There's the going and making the amends. Say I owe you $500, right? Well, the first part of that is I need to pay you back $500, right? Right. Maybe with some interest. Like I need to pay that back. The second part is to net, say I stole $500 from you. The second part of that amends is to make the living amends and not steal another penny.
Yeah, so... Right?
But I think people use living amends as an excuse to not go make the amends.
So this is the way I look at it, is there's direct amends, there's indirect amends, and living amends. Okay. So the way I look at it is your direct amends is direct, right, with the person. To me, the indirect part is, okay, if I know I stole from someone, for an example, I stole money from someone and I know I owe them this money. But maybe I know that time's not right to make the direct amends. I could always still deliver that payback that payment to them. So in some form, right? Yeah. Whether it's dropping it off in their mailbox somehow or something, that's a form of an indirect amends. You know, I don't know if you just write your name on it and you know what I mean. That way they know who it's from or what it is. You know, whatever. To me, that's a form of an indirect amends. The living amends, the way I look at that is mainly
not repeating the same behavior.
Not repeating, but there's a lot of people I hurt in my life that are no longer here. Right. That I can't make.
And see, that's different.
The direct amends to. So now I'm working a living amends to that person.
Yes.
Who's no longer with us.
Right. And that's what I mean by like there's context to it. Right. Like, so that's different. What I'm talking about is someone says, like, there's an opportunity to make a direct amends. Or like you said, at least make a start with an indirect amends. Yeah. But they say, you know what, I'm just going to make living amends. And they just say, I'm just going to live better.
Yeah, because there's a living amends is part of all of them.
Right. Yes.
Right. But I'm just trying to more specifically categorize.
Right. So the way I look at it is, so the way that I try to break it down to guys, it's like, if I owed you, let's stick with $500. If I owe you or I pawned your TV. I pawned your TV. You probably don't care that much that I'm not pawning TVs anymore. You want your TV back, or you want some kind of reimbursement for your TV, some kind of payback for that, right? So that's kind of cowardly of me to just be like, you know what? I'm not going to approach him. I'm just going to make a living amends and not do that anymore. Right. See, I think that's a cop out.
Yeah.
To me, right? Because it says clearly made direct amends. Like, so, and another way of doing that, right, is, and there's nuance to all these things, right? Like every amends we make is different. You know, every situation is a little bit different because there's a backstory and there's all these things, right? So this is something that why we discuss these things with our sponsor or support group. But like, you know, I use stealing a lot because I stole a lot, right? So I just go to that example, right? I stole from you, so I'm going to send you an email telling you how sorry I am. That's not an amends to me, right? Like that's not, unless that's the only way that I can reach you. Like say you live in, I don't know, Egypt, you know, then right. Maybe that's the only way, or a letter, like that's the only way I can reach you. That's okay, right? But if you live 2 miles from me and I can still have your phone number and I can reach out to you to see if we can meet up at some time and get coffee and talk, then I think that's a cop out. Me saying, we're just sending you a text and I'm making amends to you. Right. You know, like, and I'll tell guys, I say, can I do it in a text? I'm like, did you harm them through a text? No. Like, if you did, then yeah. Right. But if you didn't harm them through a text or over the phone, then you need to do it face to face, man to man, you know, just because out of respect. Yeah. It seems more sincere if you're willing to humble yourself to somebody, show up and be like, hey, I fucked up. Like, right. I regret that and I really fucked up. I want to fix it. Right. That sounds so much more genuine to me than getting a text or an email saying, hey, man, I fucked up. Yeah. You know, because if I got that, I'd be like, delete. You know, like, now I haven't made it right. Right. You know, so it's all about making things whole, you know, if we can. Yeah. You know, so what are your thoughts on that? Like stuff like that, where you know, people try to kind of skirt around it a little bit because they don't want to be uncomfortable.
Right. And that's where I would go back to the guidance from our sponsor to let us know what's the best way to approach this and when to approach it. Maybe that's one of those on your list that it's not time to make that. If you can't do it that way, you know, and I've in my life, in and out of recovery, I'm not going to say I haven't done things that way because I have at certain points, and it was not the right way to do it. Right. You know what I mean? It wasn't the right way to do it. So, but I think that maybe it's just the timing's not quite ready for that for you to make that.
So that's a good time for the living amends, right? It's like just live right until the time comes to when you can do that. But don't just say, well, I don't have to do that amends now because I'm doing living amends. Right, right. I think that's a cop-out.
Yeah. And that's why
and we're not going to get free that way.
Right, right. That's why I think the living amends for me fell more in line with the ones I've harmed that are no longer here. Yeah. You know, because I have to, that's the way I have to do it for
sure.
You know, and even getting on to the living amends, specifically, one of my good friends that, you know, we were childhood friends and always stayed in contact until he passed away. And after he passed and I had gotten sober finally at that time, there was no other way for me to make that amends other than a living, showing up at his gravesite and just sat there and spoke with him that way for a little while. And then it was time to live that way. You know, that's what I had to do. So that's just how I've always looked at the living amends part. Mm-hmm. I don't, because we should be able to, at some point and sometime on our journey, we should be able to make amends. Yeah. Without just saying, I need to do living amends for everybody. Yeah. You know,
I've met people like that.
No, I have too.
You know, I'm just like, dude, like,
yeah, I'm not going to do any. I'm just going to do living amends on all of them. And
yeah, so you're basically not doing the step,
right?
Like, you're really not. You know, because you haven't made restitution. Right. You're just living better.
Yeah.
Which is great. You know, like that's part of it. Like that's great. But there's no responsibility in that. And that's what the step's all about, is responsibility, taking responsibility for your actions and cleaning up your past. I'm not cleaning up my past if I'm just living better in the future. Right. It's not taking care of what I've done in the past. Mm-hmm. Right. So then I'm constantly walking around with fear because I'm not going to run into him. Right. I got every time I used to do this, I'd see this guy, I would see this white Crown Vic, and I would think, is that him? I'd go up to the gas station, like, is that him? Are we going to fight? Is he going to call me out? Is this going to be a scene? And then some old lady would get out of it. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Yeah. But I finally, the time was right where I made the amends. And I showed up at his house with the $200 cash that I owed him, you know, and we made it right. And I made, and the bigger part of that is I don't steal from people anymore.
Right.
You know, like I paid back what I owed. And then from then on, I don't steal, you know, so that's the living part of the amend.
Right.
You know, because it doesn't really mean much if I pay him his $200 back and then I go steal from somebody else tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would be like most people, I know you won't specifically, but people who are at this point who have never really done this, the amends part of this thing, you would be shocked at the amount of people you've harmed over your life.
Oh, yeah.
That you go to make this amends, and majority of them, all they want is for you to stay on track and to do well. A lot of the people, typically, I'm not going to say typically, but a lot of people like won't even expect payment back.
Yeah.
You know, like what's done is done.
The willingness to do it is like means a lot.
Yeah. So we make this step about us in our head and what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
And then we let fear take over. Mm-hmm. And we decide to try to take an easier, softer way.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be uncomfortable.
That's exactly what we do.
That's why people don't do this step.
Yeah, but there's so much freedom off the back of doing it.
Right.
If you could like be in my body and experience what I experience after doing it, you would be ready to go do it. Mm-hmm. Because the freedom that comes with the way that you feel after making it right and say it goes off well, because most of them do, not all of them, but most of them do, mm-hmm. you know, and all that baggage just feel like years of just pent up stuff is just gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, man, I feel light on my feet mm-hmm. now. Like I'm ready to go make another one.
Right.
You know, I'm ready to go do it again. And so that kind of makes me think of, it says at the end of step 9, right? Except for when it would injure them or others. So
that's what I was about to get into
go ahead,
as well. So like one, I'm not going to go into specifics on it, but or Pacifics. So, you know, there's one that I wanted to make a direct amends on somehow, but this person is directly in my life and always will be, right? So at that time, when I was like, I don't know how to do this or what I should do, my sponsor, where he guided me on this one, was, okay, you now have, this is one of those where you have this amends that could be made, but it could possibly bring up some shit and harm this person. Mm-hmm. And it would have possibly harmed someone else in my life by me doing this.
Yeah.
So at that point, and it was like, okay, where's your relationship with this person, with this amends today versus when all this stuff happened years ago? Where's this relationship at today? This relationship has gotten 10 times better than it ever was, right? So do we go ahead and bring all this back up?
Yeah, we don't need to go stirring a bunch of shit up.
Right. if things have moved on and progressed, do we need to bring all this back up and possibly bring something back up in them? And then how would it have made the other person that's directly in my life? How would it have affected them?
Right.
So it could have harmed one or multiple people by making this amends. So that was one that was like, okay, we just need to keep moving forward, and this can be a living amends.
Right. So it talks about in the book with like relationships and about how like sometimes it's best to let bygones be bygones because, like you said, like there's no point in stirring up a bunch of shit if it's going to harm someone, because that's not why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this so I can feel better and I'm going to harm you. I'm going to make my load lighter and make yours heavier. Right. That's bullshit. Like I'm not there to do that. So, but the difference is you in that situation sought out counsel from an outside source and was given direction. Where that can be troublesome is if just in my own head, I go, you know what, I'm probably not going to make this amends. Right. Like, and then that might be the right inclination, but I need to run it by somebody.
Right.
Because there might be a way to do it and not harm them.
Correct.
Or I might just need to leave it alone. Let sleeping dogs lie and just be done with it and just move on. You know, it's like sometimes the best thing that we can do for people is just leave them the fuck alone.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
So, but at the end of that step, it says, or injure them or others. So here's the controversial part. We're not others. Right. By very definition, we are not an other. Right. So and that's another reason why people don't want to make amends is because, well, it's going to harm me.
Right.
It's going to hurt my family. And I'm not talking about physical harm.
The others
I'm talking about emotional harm. Like, it's going to hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
It's going to make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Tough shit.
And the others is just like the example I gave, where someone else directly in my life could have been affected.
It could be your ex and her new husband, you know,
or your ex
sister,
and your current.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. So. But it's important to understand, like, we are not others. Right. So, like, I can't save my own skin and let them still be harmed.
Yeah.
You know, like I got to throw myself out there. And like I said, we read it earlier, like no matter what the personal consequences may be, you know, I might get my teeth kicked in, like not physically. I'm just saying I might, you know, get a little butthurt.
Right.
But that's part of that process that needs to happen because maybe I should feel bad, you know, from the things I've done. You know, I probably should feel bad, you know, if I have any kind of heart at all.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to go into an amends just all, you know, happy-go-lucky, like, hey, you know.
I mean, we're telling them some shit, what we did wrong, you know, and it's going to make us feel some kind of way.
And for me personally, right, like, it's easier for me to do it because I know I need to do it, and I know it's the right thing, but it's still not easy to do.
No.
The act of it hasn't gotten easier for me.
Right.
Because I have pride, I have ego. None of us want to admit when we're wrong. Or we've fell short. You know, I don't want to admit that. You know, it's very humbling to be like, hey, I fucked that up.
Well, I mean, and it's just
that's not how I would say it, but you know,
it's just human nature. We don't want to be uncomfortable.
No,
you know, that's what it comes down to, and it's very uncomfortable to do these things. Yeah. You know.
So, one thing that I tell guys when they're getting ready to go make amends is. Because it's very hard not to say sorry. Like it's just part of our vocabulary. Like it like automatically comes out. Like it's really hard. And I tell them like if you say it, it's okay. Don't go in there intentionally saying it though. If it slips out, like it's not a big deal.
Right.
You know. But I try to coach them on using the word regret instead of sorry because it sounds totally different. Right. So if I tell you, man, I'm really sorry that I slept with your wife, you know, you're like, are you though? You know, but I say, hey man, like what I did was wrong and I deeply regret doing that. That hits different it sounds more sincere.
Right.
Than,
right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So.
Because when you just say, I'm sorry, that's so, like I said, we've used that so many times. Like,
it doesn't have any weight anymore.
Yeah.
Like there's no weight to it.
Right.
Right. So, do you have any like experiences with amends that like stick out to you that were good or bad?
I honestly, I've never experienced one.
Actually, I've never made one.
I've never experienced one that really went bad.
Right.
I
don't know if I have either.
I
think if I had, I would remember.
Right. So, one for me, one of the best ones that sticks out to me was, man, and it was totally out of the blue. And this was someone that was a huge part of my life for a very long time. From the time I was, God, I guess I would say maybe 6 or 7 up until I was 16, so like 10 years. And, he was helped raise me. Right. And then after him and my mother split up, right? I ended up harming him and I caused a lot of emotional damage. And, per the court system, I was not allowed to contact him. I was not allowed to do anything to make an amends, or not. At that point, they weren't saying you can't make it. They were just saying, no, the court system says you are to have no contact with this victim.
Yeah.
Because he was then a victim of my actions, right? So years later, right, this happened 2011, somewhere around 2011. And it wasn't until, God, I guess it was Christmas time, I guess 2 years ago. And I was like 2 years sober at the time. And him and my mom are still friends. And I show up at my mom's house. I believe it was Christmas Day. I show up to my mom's house, and this Hummer pulls up to the end of the driveway as I'm getting out of the car with my wife and kids. And I'm like, who's Hummer? Like, who is this?
Right.
And it was him that got out of the car. And my mom had made some potato salad for him to take to his family. Like, they're still friends like that, right? And my heart sank.
Yeah, I was going to say, what happened to your gut?
Dude, everything. I was like, oh no. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
And I tell my wife to go in. I'll be there in a second, right? And I just started walking towards him. And before I could even open my mouth, he just reached out and grabbed me and hugged me so tight.
Nice.
And I'm crying. I'm like, you can see it. It gave me good. It still gets just thinking about it, you know. And I'm crying, hugging this man, and I start to. At that point, I knew this was proper.
Yeah,
this was the time that God put him in this exact moment.
That's a good point, because there are times when we can't seek out counsel like that. Right. When something like that happens. But if our motives are good, which you knew what you know, you were doing it for the right reasons. So go ahead.
So as soon as I start to speak, I mean, he didn't even need to hear it.
He's like, shut the fuck up.
He didn't even need to hear it. He just said, I'm proud of you, and you just keep doing the right thing. And that was that, but that in that moment, I knew that was a God moment. And that is probably the one that really sticks out of all amends I've made. That was the one that really, because most of the time it's done that way, to where with permission.
Right.
But that was one that God put I had nothing to do. That was God. That was on God's timing, and that was all God's plan.
Yeah.
Because I haven't ran into him at any stores. I haven't, nowhere. Our paths never crossed from the time up until that point. The last time that we looked each other in the face, I was in handcuffs in the back of a police car as he looked at me with complete disgust through the window and just shook his head and walked away. And then, God, 12, 13.
It's taking me back.
Right. 12 or,
making me feel a certain type of way.
12 or 13 years later is when God put him right here in front of me when I was 2 years sober. And I knew that this was the time.
Right.
You know, so that's the one that always sticks out to me.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. So I had one. So the day before I got sober, I'd been stealing from my best friend, and he found out about it and confronted me in front of my family, and it was humiliating. And I deserved to be humiliated. I really did. And he had told me before he left, he said, "You're to never contact me again." And I was like, "Damn, this is really pissed," you know.
Yeah.
And so for like two years, it was probably about the same timeline because I had just started working. I was working at Cross, so I was like 2.5 years sober, and something like that, somewhere around there. And I was like, it was always on my mind. And that's what I was talking about. He drove a white, like Crown Vic. And I would see it. I would see a car that was like his, and I would always be like, man, I wonder if that's him. You know, and so we left things pretty bad, you know. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to go if he gets out of that car, you know. And he never did. Never saw him. And then it's still been on my mind. Like, you know, like I want to reach out to him, but he told me to never contact him again. So I'm going to respect. My sponsor was like, you got to respect that. I was like, okay. So he's like, but remain willing if something comes up. So I was like, all right. So over this 2-year span, we were still friends on Facebook, but we never there was no interaction on there. You know, it was kind of ghosted each other. And he started liking stuff that I was posting. And I was like, just out of the blue, like, just liking stuff. You know, I was like, huh. It's like, that's odd.
Right.
You know, it's like, maybe he's at a place now where he's ready to where I can reach out.
Yeah.
So I called my sponsor and I told him, and he was like, yeah, reach out, man. He was like, just, you know, send him a text or whatever and just say, hey, you know, I'd like, if you're okay with it, I'd like to sit down and talk, you know. And I told him that, and he was like, sure. I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. So I did some math in my head, how much money I owed him, you know, and I figured it up, and I rounded up a little bit, just in case,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And so I came home and told my wife, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go meet this guy, and I owe him some money. And so I need to show up with the money that I owe him. So I took the money out of the bank and went and met him. And dude, it went great. Like, he was just like, I paid him, first thing I did, I paid him his money. I was like, look, this is how much money I owe you. Here's your money. And then I told him, you know, like, I regret what I did to you. I harmed you and I was wrong. And I take full responsibility for that. And, you know, what else can I do other than giving you your money? What else can I do? And he just hugged me.
Yeah.
Like, and dude, I'm crying. He's crying. And he's just like, dude, I'm so glad you're doing well. And I was like, wow. There's 2 years of guilt just gone.
Right.
And I was like, dude, like, thank you. You know, I was like, man, like, I didn't know what was going to happen when I pulled up to your place. You know,
and it's so freeing. You know what I mean? And when we do this process and just the weight, like you just said, the weight that is instantly lifted.
Yeah, I was like,
because I know how you felt, because in that example I just gave, in that moment, man, like, it's hard to explain the feeling, but it was like, that was something that like I said, that was 2011 to 2023.
Right.
So 12 years.
It's a lot of tension.
That was a lot of weight, man. And that was one that I always hoped to be able to make.
Yeah.
And 12 years later, and it was so freeing and emotional, and just the weight that instantly came off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I haven't seen him since.
Yeah. Really?
I haven't seen him since.
Yeah, that's a God thing.
And that was the one time I saw him, and that was 2 years ago.
I haven't seen this guy either. We do communicate here and there through Facebook or something, like just by like, I'll see something, some clip or something that I know he'll find funny, because we have a certain sense of humor with each other, and I'll send it to him. He'll send me something back,
Right.
and stuff like that. We're like, I'm glad you're doing well. It's just little things. We're not friends. We don't hang out anymore. But it's been repaired.
Yeah.
So bygones are like, it's all water under the bridge. It's just like, okay. Like now when I see a white Crown Vic, I'm not like, uh-oh. Like I don't go into that fight or flight. It's just like, so that's a good thing about getting these amends done, or, at least making progress on them, right? Is I no longer have to carry that around. So I'm not constantly worried. I think we get used to that, and we don't realize how much fear that we're still living in because we haven't cleaned up the past. We're like buckling under the weight of it, but we don't realize it because it's kind of become normal to live on that level of fear and tension and just that feeling in your gut of always being on high alert.
Right.
That who am I going to run into? When I go to the bank, who am I going to run into? Or at Walmart, who am I going to run into? You don't have to worry about that anymore. Or if I do run into somebody, I know how to handle it now.
Exactly.
I know exactly what to do. I know exactly what not to do. Sometimes that's more important. Knowing what not to do.
Yes.
Like you said earlier, I don't go into it going, hey, man, like I harmed you and I feel really bad about what I did. But, I wouldn't have done that if you weren't such a dick.
Right.
Like I don't do that.
Right.
I had a guy make amends to me, or amends is a loosely used term, right?
Yeah.
Air quotes, amends in treatment. I was working in treatment, and this client comes up to me after he's been there for like 3 weeks, and he comes up to me and goes, "Oh, you did amends," and I was like, "Oh, like I had no idea that this guy had harmed me." Right. So this is what you were talking about earlier. Like I have no idea. He's like, first thing he says is, when I first met you, I thought you were a dick. And I was like, well, thanks.
Right.
I feel like shit.
Right.
He's like, I just want to make amends to you for that. And that was it. And I was like, well, thanks, man. Now I feel like a piece of shit.
Right.
Like, because apparently you thought I was a dick. Like, I thought we were cool. Like, I didn't know anything was wrong. But obviously there was. Like that's one of those things, like why we talk to people, or why we work the first 8 steps.
Yes.
Before we do that, right? Because, if we work so I believe that, and something else that I try to instill in my guys is that, like, the power in the steps is in the sequence of them, right? So step 1 prepares you for 2. Steps 1 and 2 prepare you for 3. And by the time you're done with each step, you're ready to take the next one. And so if we understand that, and we've done some thorough work, then by the time we get to step 9, not that we're like giddy about making amends, but we're ready.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm ready to do this. Like in some instances, it might be, I want to do this.
Right.
Not all of them. Some of them, yes, it's been like, I want to do this. Or I want to fix this. And some of them might be like, I don't.
Right.
But for the, at least somewhat, we get to a point where it's like, yeah, I want to do this because we've done all the work prior, and it's kind of propelled us. We got some momentum, going. And that's why it's important to do this stuff quickly, because that momentum will go away if we make a list and then we just sit on it for 4 months, 6 months, whatever, and then that momentum's gone. And it's really hard to get that momentum back going again, to go make an amends when you haven't been doing anything for 5 months. So I find that difficult. So but now we live in steps 10, 11, and 12. So we make amends when we're promptly now, and it tells us in step 10 that while we're cleaning up the past, so while we're making our amends, we start on steps 10, 11, and 12. We don't wait until every one of our amends is made before we can do step 10, because if that were the case, you and I would still be on step 9.
Right.
And we would never be able to work with it. Right. So we got to live in the present, but while we're taking care of the past.
Yes. I agree. 100%.
Yeah. And so what else? You got any other thoughts on amends?
No, I think we kind of covered everything for the most part. So
yeah, it's a scary step. It really is. For me, a lot of people I think this is where we lose people, right? We lose people on steps 4 and 9. That's typically where we lose people.
And that's typically because, that's where that's where most of our emotions come into play.
Yeah.
Those pride. 2 steps. Right.
There's ego, there's fear.
We don't want to feel them. We don't want to face them.
Yeah.
So this is, like you said, 4 and 9 are typically where people will fall off.
Right. But if we've made the commitment, right, to go to any lengths, this is part of it.
Yeah, this is a necessary part.
It's vital. It's huge. I mean, I don't think we can recover without doing it.
Right.
Me personally, I don't see how you can if you've got all that guilt, shame, and remorse.
Yes.
Going around. It's going to be really hard to be happy, joyous, and free if you're full of guilt, shame, and remorse. So, man, that's pretty much all I've got. So, we say, trust God, clean house, help others. This is part of cleaning house. We got to clean our own house, then we got to clean up all the wreckage. We talked last week about the tornado.
Yep.
We got to put everything back together, the best that we can. So, I know it's scary for people. It's not an easy step, but it is a necessary one. But it's just like the 4th step. It's not as bad as we make it in our head.
Right.
We think that we're going out to, what do they call them when you go out, not a shooting gallery, but firing squad. We think that we're going out to be part of a firing squad and just be shot. And that's not how we go into it. It's not. We don't go into it with our tail between our legs and, treat me like a doormat. We don't do that. I'm here to take responsibility.
Confidently.
And then just whatever. So, that's all I got, man. Hopefully, the next episode or 2 will be in our new studio.
That's exciting.
Studio.
Right.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I guess subscribe, follow, comment, please. We would love some comments.
Yeah.
Just help us out. So, until next time, thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.